Hey, welcome back. Today, I'll be reviewing the Dell Inspiron 13 5000 laptop, the 5301 to be precise. This laptop is a super thin and light notebook, which is also extremely powerful. It may not be their flagship XPS series or the Inspiron 7000 lineup, but still, this is a pretty great laptop and it checks most of the boxes for me. First up, let's talk about the specs of this laptop. This is a completely maxed out system. It has a Core i7-10510U processor running at 1.8 GHz and can turbo up to 4.9 GHz. It also has 8 GB of DDR4 memory running at 2667 MHz. An Nvidia GeForce MX330 with 2 GB of GDDR5 memory. This also comes with a 512 GB NVMe SSD. The display is a 13-inch 1080p display, a 720p webcam, and a dual microphone array. Not to mention Windows Hello fingerprint recognition. The processor is great. Web pages load out lightning quick, and overall I haven't had any problems with the processor. It stays pretty cool, and the power consumption is also pretty good. The SSD is pretty fast on this machine, and boot times are pretty fast. Overall, it feels smooth and premium. But what doesn't feel premium is the memory. If you're considering to keep this laptop for about 5 years or so, 8 GB of RAM won't do you well. Forget 5 years, even about 3 to 4 years. 8 GB of RAM at the moment is fine, but I know for a fact that it will not be in a few years' time. And this laptop having 8 GB of RAM only could be a deal breaker to some of you. Now, let's talk about the graphics. The Nvidia GeForce MX330 isn't really the best you can get on the laptop, but it gets work done, such as mild video editing and sometimes gaming. But if you do some serious gaming or editing, this is definitely not for you. The 2 GB of GDDR5 memory is again not that great, but it is better than nothing. Discrete graphics are miles better than integrated graphics. And on any laptop, I'd suggest you to go for discrete graphics over integrated graphics if there were a choice. Now, let's talk about the amazing display. The 1080p display is really good on a 13-inch screen. I have to get really close to the laptop to make out each individual pixel. So far, the screen is responsive and I haven't had much troubles with it. The screen does not overheat at all, and that's a really good thing. Now let's talk about the speakers. The speakers do get pretty loud. I'm just calling to say And the sound produced is not the best, but it'll do the job pretty well. The webcam and microphone aren't the best, but it is fine and will do the job for some calls and all that. Now, let's talk about the Windows Hello fingerprint sensor. A fingerprint sensor is a really good feature that I think every laptop should have. However, on this one, the accuracy is pretty off. Not pretty, way off. Windows does not really make the most out of fingerprint sensors, as you're unable to add multiple fingerprints for more accuracy. And most importantly, the fact that bothers me the most is if you fail 3 times to get a finger correct, which is really common, you have to use your password to enter. Now that we've covered all that, let's talk about the ports. On the right, there is a micro SD card slot, a headphone jack, which you shouldn't take for granted nowadays, and a USB Type-A. On the left, there's an AC in from a 65-watt power adapter, a full-sized HDMI, another Type-A, and a Type-C, which supports power delivery and DisplayPort. Do note that you can only charge by USB-C if you have a 27-watt and above rated power brick. Now, let's talk about the build quality of this laptop. This laptop is very thin at just about 14 millimeters. Even a calculator is as thin as this laptop. And it is also extremely light at only 1.2 kilograms. That's why this laptop is portable and will help anyone who travels around a lot. However, the downside with every thin and light laptop is that there's a little bit of screen flex and deck flex. Unfortunately, there's a little bit of deck flex even when you're typing. Again, it doesn't have the best build quality, but that is the trade-off for having a thinner light laptop. If you really do want great build quality, I think you should go for a heavier and thicker laptop, such as Razer laptops, and they will have excellent build quality. But what I think is the best part about the build quality is the hinge. The hinge is firm and stays at any position you want it to be at. And when you close the laptop, if that's what you call it, there is a slap sound. That may seem scary at first, but reassures you that you have closed it. Then the best part is that the chassis gets lifted up, which makes for better typing angle and better airflow through the bottom. Since we are on the page of typing, why not we talk about the keyboard and trackpad. The keyboard is really great and makes me get to fast typing speeds. The key travel is great and makes me feel confident that I've pressed the key. There's also no issue where you press the corner of the key and it doesn't register it. However, the keyboard isn't that quiet and usually makes quite a bit of noise. But I think that's a good trade-off I'll be willing to make for the firm feedback when you click the keys. Now, let's talk about the trackpad. I've had no issues with it in the few months of usage. It is really smooth and the tracking is amazing. It has the Windows position drivers and they make it so much better with some shortcuts. Not to mention, the trackpad is pretty big and is usable on a daily basis. I've been using the trackpad all the while and it has never made me feel that I needed a mouse. If we go over to the design of the laptop, it is really great too. I have the silver variant with me. There's another pink sand variant too, but trust me, it looks ugly. Coming back to the silver variant, it looks really clean and the palm rest has a little bit of shine, which looks really cool. And not to mention the quote-unquote diamond cut border around the touchpad. Nevertheless, the border looks shiny and makes the touchpad stand out. Now let's talk about the bezels. The bezels on this laptop are really thin, considering the price and specs. It may not be as thin as the XPS series, which is about twice as expensive and has no discrete graphics, but it really gives you a modern experience, especially if you're coming from an older laptop. The extremely high screen-to-body ratio and the wide bezels sometimes make it smaller than they are. Now that we're done with all that, let's talk about the battery. There is a 40 watt-hour non-replaceable battery, which is extremely small for a laptop in 2020. However, you do get 8 hours of non-stop video playback with Wi-Fi on. This is because the CPU takes very little power, and thus only a small battery is needed with this CPU, the Core i7-10110U. This helps Dell keep the laptop thin with amazing battery life too. Plus, there are multiple power-saving options and thermal management options with the Dell Power Manager application that comes with the laptop. Charging takes about 2 hours from 0 to 100, and fast charging is also supported, which takes about 1 to 1.5 hours, but I strongly recommend not using fast charging. If you want to know why, check out this video right here. And now for one last thing. So Intel just launched their 11th generation Tiger Lake processors. Therefore, this laptop on Dell's site now comes with the Core i7-1165G7, which is faster and equally as power efficient than the Core i7-10110U that I'm currently using. The 1165G7 is fabricated on the 10nm process compared to the 14nm process on my laptop currently. This laptop also comes with the Nvidia GeForce MX350 compared to the MX330, which is of course better. What you also get more than me is 8 gigs of DDR4X memory running at 4267 MHz compared to my DDR4 non-X running at 2667 MHz. Expect performance to be way better than what I'm getting right now, and this laptop just became way more worth it. And despite all this, the price is staying the same at 1549 Singapore dollars, which is about 1.1 thousand US dollars. So, should you buy this laptop? Short answer, yes. But it is yes, unless the trade-offs that I've mentioned earlier are some that you aren't willing to make. On that note, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions regarding this, feel free to ask in the comment section down below. Please consider leaving a like and subscribing, and we'll see you in the next one.